Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was reading this dictionary. Yeah. And they have a word called immunity, the state at which something is immune, not affected, or responsive, resistant, or protected as to a disease. Now, I had mentioned in various emails and videos about the International Child Abduction and Abuse Conventions of the United Nations. Yes. And how, as an employee of the United Nations, there are those that think they have diplomatic immunity. Now, I'm just going to need to know again the phone numbers of every employee of the United Nations for the last 60 years. I'm going to need to know their home IP addresses and their work IP addresses. And then every person that thinks they have diplomatic immunity when their employment in the United Nations obligates them is mandatory to report child abuse when they have knowledge of it. Now, I know you're an employee of the United Nations. You think you have diplomatic immunity from being prosecuted in this nation or other nations if you have the knowledge of missing and abducted children. Now, my 5 sons were kidnapped from Guam, and a protection order was issued on July 8th of 2011 that violates my right to due process. Now, I'm going to need to know every employee of the United Nations, all of their telephone networks and their telephone numbers. I'm going to want to know their IP addresses, their incoming and outgoing phone calls, and every United Nations center in every nation of the world. Now, I had mentioned in these various conventions, there's known as the Recent Corruption Convention of the United Nations, that all nations that have or do belong to the United Nations Charter have to enforce. Now, it could be that those that don't take seriously their obligations as mandatory reporters, those that don't take seriously their obligations as sworn, elected, or appointed oaths of office, that when I get done suing them for violating the conventions of the United Nations, that they might consider what it means to be an international member of the United Nations. Now, there is no diplomatic immunity for any employee of the United Nations that has any knowledge of child abuse in any nation of the world. So give me the phone numbers, the IP addresses, the set-top boxes, the streaming videos of every employee and all of those that are employed in any international United Nations center everywhere in this world.